You mentioned before, not to spoil our business here, that when you were looking through your various formats and different things, you ran across your agent reports.
Yes, I did. And we've talked about the agent reports also on some of the programs, but like in the 90s, every weekend, the WWF would run their house shows. And at every house show, they would have two agents, one for the box office and one to run the locker room, give the finishes, watch the matches, make sure Michaels didn't fucking show his ass in the ring or whatever. And then they would call in, I've mentioned this, they'd call in a special line at the office and record the report on the night immediately when the show was over. And bless Howard Finkel, he would get to the office at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was and type up not only the agent reports, but also the Finkel report, which covered the things that were in the newsletters or things that were in the burgeoning early internet or wrestling news that was out there amongst the public, and anything that he thought that Vince and the creative team or whatever might need to know. So, and I mean, I've got a bunch, I didn't save all of them. I've got a bunch of these, but I just pulled this one out just because I hadn't seen one in a while. And it's an agent report, and it happened to be one from Knoxville, Tennessee, February 20th, 1997, and something that I'd forgotten that I fucking did. In those days, and by the way, this is for Knoxville, and then the other town that night was, I swear to God, the Unterfrankenhall in Aschaffenburg, Germany. So that night they ran Knoxville, Tennessee, and Aschaffenburg, Germany. So anyway, and it would give the office all the information for I won't go into Germany and I won't go the whole thing for Knoxville, but I'll give you the card, I'll give you the gate, and I'll give you one of the descriptions just so you see the flavor of the thing. The original card was changed considerably, apparently. But listen to what the original card was. Undertaker versus Farouk. Ahmed Johnson versus Crush. Goldust versus Savio Vega. Jesse James, who was Road Dogg at that point, right, versus Buddy Landell. Phineas and Henry Godwin against the new Blackjacks, who were Wyndham and Bradshaw. Tom Pritchard against Razor Ramon. Barry Horowitz against Diesel, and of course this was the fake Razor and Diesel.
Hey, is it Tom Pritchard as Tom Pritchard at that point?
Yes, well, I'm fixed to get into that. And then Freddie Joe Floyd and T.L. Hopper against the Headbangers. That was the original card, right? Well, apparently that's at some point. Ahmed, he was hurt or whatever happened to him. I don't fucking know, but he wasn't on the card. Also, Crush was gone for some reason. Also, the Blackjacks, they were gone for some reason. Also, basically the whole goddamn card was changed for whatever reason. And I remember JR, because JR was the one that was booking the live event lineups at that point, coming to me because it was Knoxville and saying, well, fuck, what can we do here? Because what was advertised was completely fucked up, including, one of the Ahmed Johnson against Crush, whether you like it or not, was one of the main event matches. And so Goldust against Savio Vega was also, and Goldust was not there. There was injuries and there was whatever the fuck going on. So the first thing I said, you've got Freddie Joe Floyd and T.L. Hopper on the card, and nobody in Knoxville, Tennessee knows who the fuck they are or cares, but it's Dirty White Boy and Tracy Smothers, and all the wrestling fans in Knoxville know who they are. So drop that. That might help us a little bit. We can't have Goldust, but Marlena's still good. Marlena and Sonny, who also they know in Knoxville, in an arm wrestling contest. This is when they had Honky Tonk Man, right? It was on the roster. He was managing. They said, well, we'll send him down to do an interview. I said, okay. Then White Boy, Buddy Landell was already on the card because Buddy's from Knoxville. And if White Boy wasn't the most popular wrestler from Knoxville, Tennessee in Knoxville, it was Buddy Landell. I said, we can call Ron Wright. So the card ended up The Undertaker versus Farouk, and they added a steel cage because they jacked everybody on the other main events. Dirty White Boy versus Buddy Landell. I worked Buddy's corner, and we brought Ron Wright in for White Boy's corner. Then Tracy Smothers wrestled the new Diesel, who would be 23 years later the mayor of the city of Knoxville, Glenn Jacobs. Razor Ramon, the fake Razor, wrestled Ricky Rocket because he was a local guy that we found at the back door.
What do you mean?
We still didn't have enough fucking people. We think the WWF's going to book Ricky Rocket if they had anybody else, right?
Well, when you say you found him at the back door, he was just hanging out?
Yes. Try to get booked, and it worked for once. I think Buddy may have brought him. Is that because I said, Buddy, you got anybody can work? I'll see what I can do.
For the rest of this guy's life, he's telling people, I work for the WWF against Razor Ramon in Knoxville. And it was true.
Then Barry Horowitz worked with Headbanger Thrasher, who had been in Smoky Mountain. Mosh worked with Brackus. Remember Brackus? That was one of like the 6 weeks worth of matches he actually had in the company. And basically that was the card that, because everybody else was in Germany, right? And Tom Pritchard ended up not working because this was when his back was out. And he couldn't hardly stand up, and they said, no, don't worry about it. So that card did 3,465 paid with 788 comps. Remember, I just did my report, and I had fucking 180 comps out, and 100 of those or more were to sponsors that had paid money to begin with. But anyway, it had grossed $49,416. So that was what we did. And also they got some contact names with me or from me, and I put Buddy on it. And we had Channel 6, one of the local TV stations there with, Buddy brought, a kid that was terminally ill. They were doing a news story on him, and they took some pictures and did some video with some of the boys. So anyway, the best match of the night poll, according to the ring announcer, was the cage match between Undertaker and Farouk, followed by the Dirty White Boy and Buddy Landell and Tracy Smothers and Diesel.
Tracy Smothers and Unabomb.
Well, Tracy Smothers and Unabomb, yes. But that was, again, we were doing what we could to save the show. And I had forgotten until I saw this report that we did this. And Jack Lanza did the recap of the Dirty White Boy and Buddy Landell match. Jim Cornette was in Landell's corner, and Ron Wright was in White Boy's corner. Ron Wright is an old timer. Now, remember, besides Jack never worked Tennessee, also he's telling this for The Office, Vince, and, he doesn't think Vince knows who any of these people are, and probably didn't. Apparently, he's been around here for about 40 years. A lot of people remember him, a nice old fellow. He's kind of crippled up, but nevertheless, the people remember him, and we didn't disappoint them. I wanted to kind of remember what this fellow meant all through these years, and we tried to keep it as his night. This was also the Hooters match. Wait a minute now, hold on. If Dirty White Boy was to beat Landell, if you save your ticket stub, you get one order of chicken wings at Hooters. See, that was one of the... Hey, they wanted me to help them draw a fucking house in Knoxville, right?
I still like Ron Wright as this kind old fellow.
Yeah, well, there's more. So Jack Lanza continues, I guess we're in the chicken business, but nevertheless, they were sponsors and we treated them well. We had a couple of Hooters girls that went down to the ring. After the talent got into the ring, took the robes, brought them back, etc. Guest ring announcer from Channel 8, Alan Williams. He did a nice job. We gave him a nice introduction. Jack is speaking, dictating, so he gets a little repetitious. Anyway, Alan Williams did a nice job and introduced Landell and Cornette. Of course, the people certainly remember these fellows. I guess this was the town for Cornette. He got in and did a little spot on the microphone. And then the Dirty White Boy was introduced, and he came out by himself. If we were going to do this right, I wanted to give Ron Wright a separate entrance since he was an icon in this town for so many years. So Dirty White Boy got on the mic, gave him a nice introduction, and he went out. As a matter of fact, the old timer was going to have a hip replacement this morning, but he postponed it so he could do this.
What?
I swear to God. Here's the thing. Ron had his hip replacement 2 years before that. I guarantee you when Jack Lanza had told him, Ron, it's so nice of you to come and do. Well, I was going to have a hip replacement this morning, but I decided to come on. I know he had his hip replacement in 95 because the last time we used him for the series with me and Bruiser against him and White Boy, I got in the ring and did something to White Boy one night on TV, and I was waiting for Ron to come up from behind me. And I had to stand there for a while, and I'd seen him out of the corner of my eye roll in. And then finally he grabbed my shoulder and spun me around and nailed me. What happened when he rolled in the ring, his artificial hip came out of the socket, and he had to roll back the other way to put it back in before he could stand up. But anyway, Jack Lanza continues. He postponed his hip replacement. He had a cane, but he had a little extra pop in his step as he went to the ring tonight. It probably did more for him than 10 or 20 doctors could. They had a good match. The match was very good. They did a thing with Cornette and Ron. Ron couldn't walk too well, but Jim came and fed him. And Ron hit Jim with the cane, and Cornette went down. Landell hit the ropes, came off, and Ron tripped Landell, who took a bump on his face. The Dirty White Boy dropped the big elbow and hooked him for the 1-2-3. So Ron Wright was instrumental in not only nailing Cornette, but winning the match for the Dirty White Boy, and everybody was happy. Nice fellow.
That's a pretty cool write-up, too.
Well, yeah, and I mean, this was it. Hold on, I'll go to the others. I think Rene Goulet was in the box office because Jack would go on longer because of the matches, right? And also Vince would get pissed if he didn't get details on these matches, even though if he got the details, he probably didn't read it or retain it. But if he didn't see enough text, he was thinking they were dogging it.
What did he say about Ricky Rocket?
Hold on here.
Was that his name?
Ricky? Say about Ricky Rocket, yes. Razor Ramon versus Ricky Rocket. The match was to have been Razor versus Tom Pritchard tonight, but Tom's back is extremely bad. Even though he wanted to work, I didn't think it was advisable. I think he's going to the doctor on Friday in Connecticut. It wasn't right for him to work. They had a lot of locals around here, so we used Ricky Rocket, a smaller kid, good worker. I put him with Razor, and Razor over with the Razor's Edge. People got to see Razor.
That's crazy that even though it's the fake Razor, he's still talking about him like that in the report.
Well, yeah. Well, if he hadn't have, Vince would have got hot because it's Vince's fucking deal.
But he's even pretending like he's a worker like Scott Hall was. Yeah, but he was a young worker, but we put him in with Razor, so everything was okay.
Oh, but I was going to say on the front here, Rene Goulet had said... basically a couple of meet and greets scheduled for tonight, but the parties showed up late. They will be fingered privately. When that means that the guys that were scheduled to do the meet and greet showed up late, so we used Sonny and Honky Tonk Man to do it. And he mentioned and the best match of the night poll. Oh, also in the poll, two people said one did not like Buddy Landell, and one did not like the way that Tracy Smothers was treated. Huh. That's the only comments from the WWF ring announcer asking the fans on the way out. Besides Undertaker and Farouk, Dirty White Boy and Landell and the Smothers and Diesel were the best matches, and the comments were about Smoky Mountain guys. But otherwise than that.
Did anyone have a reputation amongst the agents for writing really cutting reports?
No, because they knew what the audience was, and they were trying not to get, unless the guys were just doing egregious shit to get heat on themselves, and they should talk about it. They tried to downplay any minor bullshit that they probably addressed with the guys in person, except, I wasn't there to see Strongbow's reports. I wasn't in the office then, so I don't know what he might have said about anybody. Brackus. I was very encouraged with Brackus. The things that we talked about last night, two or three of the things that we talked about, he got them. He did exactly like we told him. A little polishing, but at least he remembered them. Oh, he's got a great attitude. He's a very nice guy. The boys like him because of his attitude. He's anxious to learn, very coachable, just a nice kid. He was a nice kid.
I think I see why the wrestlers love Jack Lanza so much.
Well, I mean, he didn't want to get anybody any unnecessary heat unless they were jacking off on purpose. Because you go out, if you're rotten and you go out and you're rotten, the only thing you can do is try to help somebody be better. So it wasn't going to fucking, help any to bury them in the agent report. But there you have it. 3,465 people paid $50,000 to see that hodgepodge, but we managed to save it.
Well, you saved that, and you kept that the same way you've kept your hair. And other people need to keep their hair, too.
You know, a lot of people have said to me that I look the same as I used to back in the 80s, except I'm a little bit grayer and a little bit skinnier, but otherwise I look exactly the same. You know what I chalk that up to, Brian? I chalk that up to grading on the curve because, to be quite honest, I was merely acceptable looking in the 80s. But since I haven't changed, whereas everybody that was really hot in the 80s now looks like death warmed over, as Mama Cornette used to say, then I actually have come out ahead of the game. And one of the things you've seen, Peter Frampton. I just watched Peter Frampton on Access TV the other night in a recent concert. And remember, no, you don't remember because you weren't even a gleam in your father's eye at that point. But when Frampton Came Alive came out, the album cover, there was that fucking Peter Frampton. Big close-up of him on the cover with all that hair, and all the girls in the 70s just wanted to run their hands and their fingers and potentially their boobies and anything else that they could get up there through and into Peter Frampton's hair, just cuddle up with that hair. Well, you know what Peter Frampton looks like today? He's balder than a goddamn 7-ball on a pool table. And he deserves it. Fucking prick. All that pussy he got in the 70s, including some of mine. But the worm has turned, folks. Yes. Goddamn, everybody I was trying to get into already wanted to run their fingers through Peter Frampton's hair. Well, where was I going with this? Oh,
I don't know.
I'll tell you exactly what. Now, I got all my hair, and Peter Frampton couldn't get laid in a whorehouse with a fistful of 50s. He could not get a date on a tombstone. But I'm still doing just fine, except for the pandemic and being married for all these years and all that sort of thing. But I've still got my hair. And you can too, folks. You can keep that hair with our friends at Keeps, because 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time that they're 35 years old. And that 2 out of 3 men, that's in the world, right? Not just in the United States. I know it's stressful here in the U.S. Your hair falls out at a more rapid rate, but even in Bolivia, they're having problems with the hair falling out. More than 50 million men here in this country alone in the United States suffer from male pattern baldness. If it spreads any more, well, more than 50 million men, it'd have to include some women. Is there such a thing as female pattern baldness? It might be catching. Nevertheless, there are only 2 FDA-approved medications that can prevent hair loss, and Keeps offers both of them, along with convenient virtual doctor consultations, medications delivered straight to your door. You don't have to leave the house. And the treatment start at just $10 a month because Keeps offers those generic versions, discreet packaging, proven results, more 5-star reviews than any of its competitors, loud noises, statistics. Folks, if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to Keeps. That's KEEPS.com/JCE to get your first month of treatment for free. Keeps.com/JCE. 1 month, your first month for free. Keep a hold of that. Don't look like Peter Frampton, a disgusting Frampton. look like me with keeps.
It sounds like you've been waiting to cut this promo on Peter Frampton for a long time. I don't know where all this venom. Isn't he losing his hearing? You should feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, Sherry Stewart liked him in 1976.
Sherry Stewart? Who's that?
Well, never you mind. But I had designs on her, and she was a Framptonite.
Why didn't you grow your hair?
Well, have you ever seen Peter Frampton's Frampton Comes Alive album cover? You'd not only had to grow it, you would have had to curled it and fucking colored it. And that was a lot of goddamn stuff to go through for a teenager back in the 70s. Just trying to...
You could have started by just growing it.
Well, I didn't want to look like some kind of hippie. I've always had a very nice, well-kept head of hair. And I've kept most of it.
With keeps.
Keeps.